Hi, this is Billie Beene here with a flash update, Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, November 29, 2024. Time in Texas, about 7 a.m. So let's get started, and I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving, and if you're still on the way home, that it's a safe trip. Many of our roads in the U.S. are icy. So I'm going to bring you up to date today on what's going on in Ukraine. We have yesterday, Thanksgiving Day, even Serbia, adjacent to Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, Ukraine, prepping bomb shelters for its people. And so we have Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. This report came out, intel from Steve Quayle during an interview with Greg Hunter of USA Watchdog, that last week when Janet Yellen, head of the Treasury, and Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, evac to Dubai, where the Obamas had gone the night of the election of President Trump. Dubai does not have an extradition agreement with the U.S. So last week, when Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell also evac to Dubai, we had up to 100 U.S. military woke generals, along with hundreds of U.S. woke troops, also leaving the U.S. to go to Dubai. Now, this military group apparently went to the deep state hub in Dubai to receive their orders, then left Dubai and are currently in underground deep state bunkers inside New Zealand and Australia. It's speculated that these woke U.S. military generals and U.S. troops could be in the process of bringing about some type of sabotage within the U.S. military cyber security area for sure. So that's going on. And now we have this. So some of the things I covered today. Ukraine has fallen, and the U.S. A percentage of the U.S. military is apparently engaged in sabotage. NATO now wants to send 100,000 troops to Ukraine and try to invoke illegally Article 5. Russia wants complete capitulation. And we've had certain things happening since Tuesday. We've had from Dr. William Mount. So on about Monday or Tuesday of this week, the Prime Minister of Poland came out and spoke the truth, Donald Tusk, and said that of the billions that the U.S. government has sent to Ukraine, at least 50% of it went back to the pockets of the Dem Republicans. And Dr. William Mount states that President Trump will purge the U.S. military of deep staters, and as I've brought out, last week we saw a certain percentage of U.S. military generals and troops, deep staters, embedded within the U.S. military going to Dubai and now in underground bunkers in New Zealand and Australia. So that's going on. And we have this from Dr. William Mount, that around the U.S., and Dr. Mount, we need to be in prayer for. I believe he's back in the hospital. But on Monday or Tuesday, the U.S. had Russian ships around it that were cloaked, could not be seen on radar. And some potential locations that if NATO does its preemptive nuclear strike on Russia, then Russia is one of the areas Russia will hit is the U.S. Some of those locations are Washington, D.C., Charleston, Pensacola, Seattle, Portland, Eureka, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. And will also hit New York City, London, Tokyo, Guam, and Samoa. This is from the intel of Dr. William Mount. So we see NATO pressing Russia by threatening, and it's believed possibly putting in place the traitors to the U.S. military, as I've pointed out, who are now currently in underground bases in New Zealand and Australia, to do a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia. So it's speculated that these U.S. military generals and troops who have gone to Dubai and now New Zealand and Australia could possibly bring about sabotage in the U.S. by activating nukes or some types of missiles inside the U.S. to hit a U.S. city and say it was Russia, 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 or possibly to activate some type of nuclear forces inside the U.S. to do a preemptive strike on Russia. So that's going on. And now we have this. We have Alex CHRISTEFEROU, a European journalist, on Thursday, say that NATO wants to put troops inside Ukraine. That's to pull the U.S. into World War III. And from Hal Turner, we have covert intel. We know that Russia recently hit Ukraine with a powerful new type of intermediate ICBM, the Oreshnik missile, and that after Russia hit the Dnipro area with the Oreshnik missile, that inside NATO it was determined Ukraine has fallen. And so NATO, the deep state controlled NATO, is now putting forth new plans. One is to have a fast response team from Poland go into Ukraine and tell Russia, get back. Russia has stated that they want Ukraine a complete capitulation. The deep state controlled NATO. One plan is to send in a fast response from Poland into Ukraine and tell Russia to get back. We know that, or if these fast response troops are attacked by Russia, then NATO will say Article 5. However, that is not the way Article 5 works. Article 5 works when a NATO nation is attacked by another nation. In this case, it would be NATO going into a non-NATO nation, into a hot combat zone and saying, get back. You can't attack us. So that's not legal. Trying to go into a nation and then say, if you attack us, we'll invoke Article 5 is not legal under NATO's own rules. But you have deep state controlled NATO who is trying desperately now, since they understand Ukraine has fallen to Russia, to juice up World War III before President Trump can be inaugurated. And we have this going on. So Wednesday, also Wednesday night before Thanksgiving here in the U.S., Russia again did a heavy attack on Ukraine. They sent in 12 Tu-95s, 3 Tu-160s, these are bombers, And they also had missiles being launched from Russian ships in the Black Sea. And they were hitting Ukraine from Lviv, Kiev, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and Dnipro. So across much of Ukraine, Russia struck Wednesday night. And just a few days ago is when Russia launched its new intermediate ICBM Oreshnik. So that's going on. So Wednesday night, Russia launched 90 missiles into Ukraine, including Caliber. And now we have this. More intel. So today, 11/29, the day after Thanksgiving in the U.S., NATO, the deep state-controlled NATO, now has a new plan, and that is to send in 100,000 NATO peacekeepers into Ukraine, and if Russia attacks them, NATO illegally would try to invoke Article 5. Article 5 only applies when a NATO nation is attacked by another nation inside its national borders. It does not apply when NATO goes into a non-NATO nation and says, if you hit us, we'll invoke Article 5. That is illegal. Apparently, the deep state NATO believes that most of the world is ignorant. So, today, another plan by the deep state-controlled NATO. Send in 100,000 NATO troops and take over Ukraine's and also bring in investment from military-industrial companies, take over the government, the companies, the industrial base inside Ukraine. NATO plans to occupy, so in the West, the deep state NATO is going to put Poland in charge. In the East, they're going to put Germany in charge. So Central is going to be the UK, West Poland, and East Germany. Hello, NATO, you're not in control of Ukraine, and it appears that if you bring troops into Ukraine, that you will become a legitimate military target by Russia. And we have this going on. Russia wants complete capitulation of Ukraine. So that's going on. And Russia currently preps its second Oreshnik to it's believed now, will target Kiev. We saw the first one turn with no nukes and no conventional weapons, kinetic force only, hit a munitions plant and turn it to dust and turn 3 workshops down to 60 feet, also to dust. It's believed this time that Russia has put a NOTAM over certain areas of Russia from which it will launch Oreshnik number 2 by November 30. It's believed it will hit Kiev. It's also believed this time it will be armed with conventional weapons. That means it will turn Kiev to dust. So I put forth to the deep state-controlled NATO, it doesn't look like a good idea to send in a fast response team from Poland, nor 100,000 troops. And where would those 100,000 troops be coming from? Because definitely the people of America would never go along with U.S. military going into Ukraine. So this concludes my flash. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, and world peace. I love you and I'll see you soon.